The elevator climbed smoothly toward the 32nd floor, each rising number on the digital display marking another step toward what I hoped would be the culmination of 3 years' work. Outside the glass walls of the elevator, New York City sprawled beneath me, a maze of ambition, dreams, and unforgiving competition. I adjusted my tie for the 5th time that morning. The portfolio tucked under my arm contained more than just business projections and market analyses. It held countless late nights, missed family gatherings, and the kind of sacrifice only entrepreneurs truly understand. "Mr. Eduardo Mendez will see you now." The receptionist's voice pulled me from my thoughts as the elevator doors opened to reveal Skyline Ventures headquarters. The place exuded success. Minimalist furniture in various shades of gray, abstract art pieces that probably cost more than my annual rent, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan's grandeur. I followed her through the corridor, my footsteps muffled by plush carpeting. My name is Tiago Martin, and at 34, I was moments away from pitching my technology startup to one of the most successful venture capitalists in America. My company, Faith Connect, was a platform designed to help faith-based organizations streamline their operations while expanding their community outreach. It wasn't just business for me, it was purpose. The conference room door opened, and there he was, Eduardo Mendez. Known for turning struggling startups into billion-dollar enterprises, his reputation preceded him. His steel-gray hair was perfectly coiffed, his custom Italian suit impeccable. He didn't stand when I entered. Instead, he gestured toward the chair across from him with a casual flick of his wrist. "So you're the religious app guy," he said, more statement than question. His voice carried the slight remnants of a Brazilian accent, softened by decades in America. Faith Connect is a comprehensive digital platform for faith communities, Mr. Mendez, I replied, sliding my portfolio across the sleek conference table. "But yes, that's me." He didn't immediately open the folder. Instead, he leaned back, studying me with eyes that had evaluated thousands of entrepreneurs before me. The city continued its hurried pace 32 floors below, but up here, time seemed suspended. "Tell me why I should invest $10 million in your ministry." The way he emphasized the last word made it sound like a liability. I launched into my presentation, walking through our growth metrics, market penetration strategy, and revenue projections. I highlighted our existing user base. Over 200,000 active monthly users despite minimal marketing, and outlined our scalability plan. For 15 minutes, he listened without interruption, occasionally making notes on a sleek tablet. The confidence I'd walked in with began to solidify. The numbers spoke for themselves. Faith Connect wasn't just a good cause, it was a good business. When I finished, Mendez finally opened my portfolio. He flipped through the pages with practiced efficiency, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the occasional sound of paper turning. "Impressive growth," he finally said, looking up. "Your user acquisition cost is surprisingly low. Word of mouth is powerful in faith communities," I explained. "Trust translates to organic growth." He nodded slowly, then closed the portfolio. I felt a surge of hope, until he slid it back across the table to me. "Your projections are solid, your technology is sound, and there's clearly a market," he said. "But I'm going to pass." The words hit like a physical blow. "May I ask why? If it's the valuation, we can—" "It's not the numbers," he cut me off, leaning forward. "It's the foundation. You're too religious for this market, Mr. Martin." The conference room suddenly felt airless. Too religious? Your personal values are too embedded in the business model, he continued, his tone matter-of-fact, as if discussing the weather. In today's market, that's a limitation. To scale properly, you'll eventually need to broaden beyond faith communities, perhaps into general nonprofit or community organization spaces. But your convictions will prevent that pivot when the time comes. He gestured toward a section in my business plan. You've explicitly stated that you won't work with certain types of organizations that conflict with your beliefs. That's not how you maximize returns. My mind raced. The organizations he referred to were those promoting values fundamentally opposed to my faith. Not just different beliefs, but actively harmful ones, in my view. I hadn't even considered it a controversial stance. With all due respect, Mr. Mendez, principles aren't limitations, I said quietly. They're foundations. He gave me a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. In life, perhaps. In business, he shrugged. They're luxury items. The city continued its busy hum below us, oblivious to the crossroads I faced in this glass tower. 3 years of work, my life savings, countless sacrifices, all seemingly dismissed not because they lacked merit, but because I refused to separate who I was from what I built. I could feel the weight of the moment. The practical choice was clear. Assure him I was flexible. That business was business. $10 million could transform Faith Connect overnight. My team of 5 who had been working at reduced salaries deserved that breakthrough. My wife, who had supported us on her teacher's salary while I pursued this dream, deserved that validation. But as I sat there, something unexpected happened. Instead of panic or desperation, I felt a strange clarity wash over me. Mr. Mendez, I said, my voice steadier than I expected, I believe there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what makes a business sustainable. He raised an eyebrow, clearly not accustomed to being challenged. You see principles as limitations, but they're actually competitive advantages. The very limitations you mention have earned us the trust of our user base. A trust that translates to lower customer acquisition costs, higher retention rates, and stronger word-of-mouth growth than any ad campaign could buy. I leaned forward, surprising myself with my conviction. Faith Connect isn't successful despite my values. It's successful because of them. Our users know we won't compromise, that we're building something aligned with their deepest beliefs. That authenticity is our most valuable asset. The air conditioning hummed softly in the background as Mendez studied me with new interest. Furthermore, I continued, there's a massive untapped market of organizations and individuals who feel alienated by tech companies that treat faith as an afterthought or a problem to be solved. We're not trying to be everything to everyone. We're being exactly what our market needs us to be. I stood up, gathering my portfolio. I appreciate your time and your candor, Mr. Mendez. But I won't be apologizing for or minimizing the very thing that gives our company its purpose and competitive edge. If that makes us uninvestable in your eyes, I accept that reality. I extended my hand across the table, expecting a perfunctory handshake before being shown the door. Instead, Mendez remained seated, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Sit down, Mr. Martin," he said finally. I hesitated, then lowered myself back into the chair. "Do you know why I've been successful?" he asked, his tone shifting subtly. Without waiting for my response, he continued, "Because I recognize patterns, and occasionally, because I recognize when someone breaks them." He tapped my portfolio with his index finger. Most entrepreneurs in your position would have immediately backpedaled. Assured me they could be flexible with their values. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. I've been in this business for 30 years. Do you know what the most common cause of failure is, beyond the obvious financial miscalculations? What's that? I asked. Founders who don't truly believe in what they're building. He turned back to face me. They chase market trends, investor preferences, whatever seems hot at the moment. They pivot so many times they get dizzy, and eventually, they lose sight of why they started in the first place. The conversation had taken a turn I hadn't expected. Mendez returned to his seat. Your response? He paused, seemingly choosing his words carefully. It reminded me of something I haven't thought about in a very long time. For the first time since I'd entered the room, I saw something shift in his expression. A brief crack in the polished veneer of the hardened businessman. For just a moment, he seemed almost human. The silence that followed wasn't tense like before. It was thoughtful, weighted with unspoken recognition. Outside, the afternoon sun reflected off the glass towers of Manhattan, filling the room with a golden light that seemed to mark the moment as significant. What I didn't know then was that this rejection would become the most important meeting of my career. Not because of the investment I lost, but because of something far more valuable that I was about to gain. My father was a pastor in a small town outside Sao Paulo, Mendez said, breaking the silence. I blinked in surprise. This was not the direction I had expected our conversation to take. He built his congregation from nothing, 12 people meeting in a garage, to over 3,000 members. Mendez traced an invisible pattern on the conference table. He refused donations from certain businesses, even when we could barely keep the lights on. I thought he was foolish. The afternoon light cast long shadows across the room as Mendez shared more than I imagined he'd revealed to any entrepreneur in this glass tower. When I came to America, I left all that behind. Faith, principles, they seemed like hindrances to success. His eyes met mine with unexpected intensity. I've built an empire worth billions, but something in your refusal to bend just now. He didn't finish the thought. Instead, he pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and placed it face down on the table. I'm not going to invest in Faith Connect, he said firmly. My heart sank despite my earlier resolve. But, he continued, Jordan Pierce will. The name hit me like a jolt of electricity. Jordan Pierce was the founder of Horizon Capital, another major player in venture capital. Pierce has been looking for faith-based tech opportunities. I just texted him about you. Mendez leaned forward. He's a man of faith himself. Though he's quieter about it than you, he'll understand your vision in ways I admittedly can't or won't. I sat speechless as Mendez continued. This isn't charity, Martin. Pierce runs a tight shop. If he invests, it's because he sees the financial potential. He slid a business card across the table. Call this number tomorrow. Tell them I sent you. As I left the building 30 minutes later, New York seemed different somehow. The same crowded sidewalks and honking taxis surrounded me. But something fundamental had shifted. My phone buzzed. A text from Pierce's office scheduling a meeting for the following morning. Then another notification. An email from Mendez himself with just 2 sentences. Some doors close so better ones can open. Don't waste this opportunity. Standing on that busy Manhattan sidewalk, portfolio clutched under my arm, I realized something profound. Staying true to my principles hadn't closed a door. It had revealed the right one. What I couldn't have known then was that meeting with Pierce would lead to not just funding, but a partnership that would transform Faith Connect beyond anything I had imagined. And as for Mendez, our paths would cross again, in circumstances neither of us could have predicted. But first, I had a phone call to make, to the woman who had believed in this dream even when it seemed impossible.
Sarah?
I said when my wife answered. You won't believe what just happened. 2 years later, I stood on the stage at the National Tech Entrepreneurs Summit, sharing the story of Faith Connect's journey to an audience of thousands. With Jordan Pierce's $12 million investment, we had grown beyond what I'd initially envisioned, now serving over 3 million users across 50 countries. Success didn't come from compromising our values, I told the crowd, but from embracing them fully. As I concluded my keynote, I noticed a familiar figure in the back of the hall. Eduardo Mendez watched with an unreadable expression before slipping out just as the applause began. Later that evening, at the reception, he appeared beside me as I stood alone by the windows overlooking the city lights. "Congratulations, Martin," he said, offering his hand. "Pierce made a good investment." "Thank you," I replied, shaking his hand. "Though I suspect you knew he would." Mendez smiled slightly. "Perhaps." For a moment, we stood in silence, the ambient chatter of the reception creating a private bubble around our conversation. "I've been thinking about what you said that day," he finally admitted. "About principles being foundations, not limitations." He turned to face the window, his reflection superimposed over the Manhattan skyline. "I reopened my father's church last month. It was abandoned years ago after he passed. The building was still there, just empty. The admission hung between us, weighted with meaning neither of us fully articulated. My son is getting married there next spring," he added, almost as an afterthought. "I'd like you to come." Before I could respond, he placed a business card in my hand. Not the glossy corporate one from Skyline Ventures, but a simple white card with just his personal number. "Some investments aren't measured in dollars, Martin," he said, then walked away, disappearing into the crowd. That night, as I recounted the exchange to Sarah in our hotel room, she smiled knowingly. "You didn't just build a successful company," she said, taking my hand. "You reminded someone of who they used to be." I thought about the journey, from that tense meeting in the glass tower to today. How a moment that had seemed like rejection had actually been redirection. How standing firm had led to something stronger than I could have built through compromise. Faith Connect wasn't just connecting faith communities anymore. It was reconnecting people with parts of themselves they had left behind, including, surprisingly, the man who had once told me I was too religious for business. As I drifted to sleep that night, I realized the most powerful response to those who challenge your principles isn't clever words that leave them speechless. It's living authentically in a way that eventually speaks to their hearts. Sometimes, the longest journey isn't from failure to success, but from isolation back to connection. And sometimes, staying true to your path isn't just about where you're going. It's about who might follow your footsteps home.